Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. The Division Championship Minnesota Twins are looking to go all the way to the World Series in 2024. Bolstered by inspirational shortstop Carlos Correa, a healthy Brian Buxton, and rookie phenom Royce Lewis, plus a pitching staff led by Pablo Lopez and an outstanding bullpen featuring Johan Duran, the Twins are the best bargain in the major leagues, and Target Field is the best venue in baseball. Sheridan Dulas & Kins, PA, a family and criminal defense law firm, has been serving clients in Dakota County and throughout Minnesota for over 40 years. Ranked a Tier 1 Best Law Firm by U.S. News and World Report every year since 2009, Sheridan Dulas & Kins are here to help you in your most difficult life circumstances. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Hello and welcome to Access to Democracy. We're delighted to have you join us. I'm Bill Raker, your host for this edition of the program. We're so excited to welcome as our guest today on the program Rabbi Eva Cohen. Rabbi Eva leads Or Emet, the Minnesota Congregation for Humanistic Judaism. Rabbi Eva Cohen, welcome to Access to Democracy.
Thank you, Bill. Really glad to be here.
I know our viewers are going to be really interested to hear what you have to share with us today. And let's start by, we want to know a lot about you, but let's start with an explanation about what Humanistic Judaism really is.
Sure. So we are, you could say we are the fifth recognized, organized denomination within Judaism. If you think of the spectrum, Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, Reconstructionist, and then there's us, Humanistic Judaism. And our approach is both very much about embracing the things that are positive and meaningful in Jewish culture, Jewish history, Jewish tradition, and affirming a human-centered philosophy of life. So, not taking any kind of like theistic approach, appealing to a supernatural or a higher power, and instead putting the emphasis on the ways that we as people have both power and responsibility to make a positive difference in the world.
And that's really a simple but a very powerful concept, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the practice that Or Emet has, and you're the leader there of that group.
Yes.
What first led you into thinking you would like to become a leader, a teacher, a rabbi?
Sure. So it's interesting, I grew up in the congregation, actually. I grew up at Or Emet. A lot of people come to Humanistic Judaism from outside the movement as adults. Either they've come from more traditionally religious Judaism or from cultural approaches that were not as organized, or they're coming from secular humanistic contexts that aren't necessarily Jewish. But yeah, I guess I'm one of those people who grew up in it and found it to be an approach that was meaningful and life-enhancing for me. As a kid, I didn't necessarily think like, oh, I'm going to be Or Emet's rabbi someday. But I think over I guess we could say like a period, of my young adult years, through my 20s, having a variety of different professional experiences. I became more and more excited about Jewish learning and more, you could say, mission-driven. I think really seeing the value and the importance of offering this secular, non-theistic approach to Jewishness in like an organized congregational setting, and seeing just the value and the meaning that it brought to so many people's lives, that it was a way for kids to get a secular Jewish education, and seeing how many people in the Twin Cities and really in broader Minnesota, even people in Wisconsin, expressing that if Or Emet as a congregation didn't exist, there wouldn't be like an organized Jewish community space or a congregation for them. They'd be like effectively like Jewishly homeless. And I felt passionate about, contributing to the continued success and growth of the congregation.
So one of the things that's special about you and your role is that you're the first humanistic rabbi based here in Minnesota.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you explained that you grew up in Minnesota and this is your home and has always been your home. But it's really a unique and very special role that you have now that you are the first humanistic rabbi in our state.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, the congregation for, many years, since its founding, in the really in the 1980s, was lay-led, and for a number of years was led by one of its co-founders, Madrich, or leader Harold Launder, and then as he was kind of moving into retirement, needing to step back from volunteer responsibilities. His day job, he was an oncologist, and then he did this as well. He and the whole congregation were really wrestling with what was going to happen in terms of leadership. And then, in conversation with me and, percolating on it, I started stepping into that role. And so, yeah, it's exciting to be able to, take on a role that in this particular context like never existed before. And with that, there's a lot of freedom, I think, to imagine new and different possibilities. Because in essence, I've grown my own job.
Well, that's kind of unique too.
Yeah.
So how did you prepare to become a rabbi? What's the process? What did you have to go through? What are the requirements in order to reach that level and to earn that title of respect?
So I had to have an undergraduate degree. I studied anthropology and visual art, and then was doing a range of different professional things like related to those fields. And then in terms of the rabbinical training specifically, I needed to get a master's degree in Jewish studies or an equivalent. And I got a master's degree in classical and Near Eastern studies with a focus on Hebrew Bible in the ancient Near East at the University of Minnesota here in the Twin Cities. And then, with that, building Hebrew competency and so on. And then I also needed to earn a rabbinical degree through the International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism, which is a long name for a smaller school that trains leaders for our movement. And that was, in terms of length and number of courses, like comparable to a traditional rabbinical program, like 4 years of classes, a year of internship. Because it's a small program with students really spread across North America. Through the time that I was involved, a lot of the classes were offered as like web conferencing, like on Zoom or on WebEx, and like live and synchronous, seminars, but, happening online, and then with in-person intensives during the summer. So that was the process.
So you've earned the degrees, you've taken all of the courses, you've passed all of the requirements. I believe your formal or official ordination is yet to happen, or has it already happened?
Good question, yeah. So I was ordained in May, so rabbi official, I'm here.
Okay.
But then Or Emet is going to be celebrating what's called my installation in this coming March, so in a couple of months. And with that, it's just sort of a formal recognition of, this rabbi is our congregation's rabbi. I've been joking, you install the cabinets, you install the rabbi, and yeah, Or Emet is making it official.
So what are some of the duties that you have in this position?
It's a real mix of things, I think both in the way that most rabbinical roles are and in ways that are specific to our movement. Like sometimes I think about how, it's interesting the many hats that I might wear just within a given month. Like for example, maybe you're doing grief counseling, offering like humanistic philosophic guidance and counseling. You're co-planning a congregational Hanukkah party. You're teaching someone how to sign their name in Hebrew script, to sign a ketubah, which is like a wedding contract. You're teaching children and also adults in adult learning programs, maybe about Baruch Spinoza and Yiddish, and the Haskalah, the Jewish Enlightenment, officiating at life cycle ceremonies, baby namings, bar mitzvahs, weddings, funerals, memorial services, doing, and then different kinds of administrative dimensions to it. Also, potentially speaking in public, representing the congregation in the public sphere, partnering with different nonprofits to organize like community service or social justice volunteering opportunities for young people or other congregation members. There's a lot of different things that can be involved in it. And I really, and then also, a fair amount of writing sermons, writing articles for newsletters, writing statements. And I appreciate the opportunity to flex a lot of different muscles.
Never a dull moment, it sounds like, in your life. I mean, you, as you describe all of these things that you do, I thought you must have a clone. There must be at least two of you to get all of these things done.
That's my dream.
What are some of the major challenges that you face in the work that you do?
I mean, something that I guess thinking about just the arc of my training, and I'm relatively new professionally, but before I was ordained, I was acting as Or Emet's ritual leader, kind of in training for the job that I was, the role I was studying to perform. And, during that time, like that intersected with the onset of the pandemic. So that, I think that particular, the year plus before we had vaccines, that was a challenging pivot, both with suddenly we're operating as a congregation totally online, and then all the, the fear that I and everyone else was feeling, for our loved ones, for our congregation, for, the whole world. And then that time also intersected with my having a child, so becoming a parent for the first time, and intersected with my husband starting nursing school. So there was just a lot of intensity, a lot of challenge and stress, and I think navigating through that is something that in both positive and negative ways I'll always carry.
Multiple dimensions in your life, right? Yeah. Let's pause a little bit about you personally and talk a little bit about Or Emet. Is Or Emet the first or the only humanistic congregation in Minnesota?
The only humanistic Jewish congregation.
Okay. Yes, thank you for that clarification, because there are humanistic congregations that are not Jewish, right?
Right.
Yeah. How long has Or Emet been a congregation?
So at this point, we're approaching 40 years, not quite there. But starting from like an original core group of people who I think were engaged in kind of like a cultural Jewish discussion group, a lot of whom were affiliated with First Unitarian Society, actually in Minneapolis. And then in terms of like thinking about what was the spark that lit the fire that grew, Rabbi Sherwin Wein, who was the founder really of the Humanistic Jewish movement, came to speak at First Unitarian, and our Madrich Harold Launder, who I mentioned, was in attendance at that presentation, and he was like, oh, wow, this is it, like a way to bring together my humanistic philosophy and my Jewishness that's like very important to me, and that synthesis spoke to him and spoke to other people he was in connection with, and then the group grew from there.
Well, that's interesting, and it's a growing, energetic, expanding group within the congregation?
Yeah, I would say that it is. Like, our growth trajectory is not exponential, but it's been linear, and I think that is, something significant at a time when we think about, religious organizations, congregations, movements at this time, in the United States and in many countries around the world are really contracting and losing members. Like Or Emet has been on a pathway of like slow but steady growth. So I think this approach is really resonant for a lot of people.
And what do you think some of the opportunities are for you and for that congregation to, to continue to grow and to have an impact in the community?
I spoke a little bit about community partnerships, and I think that's an area where we're hoping to, continue to expand, what it is that we do. Like, there's a variety of different organizations that we intersect with, at different points in the congregational year. Like, coming up in February, there's an initiative called Refugee Shabbat, which is sponsored by HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, but an organization that does work around immigrant rights, supporting immigrants and refugees. And this is like a national initiative, and we're holding a Refugee Shabbat. We bring in speakers from local organizations and do work around that issue, and then, hoping to involve our members in various kinds of lobbying, as well as like more direct service kinds of volunteer initiatives. So just really continuing to build on opportunities like that with various kinds of partners whose mission aligns with ours.
Can you give us a couple of examples of some of the other organizations that you collaborate with or
Sure.
partnerships with?
So one aspect of my role is leading our Bar Mitzvah program, so youth preparing for Bar, Bat, Bar Mitzvah, as well as an adult program that we're kind of in the process of piloting. And as a part of that program, youth have done different kinds of community service and social justice activities. For a few years, we've worked with like Friends of the Mississippi River, doing like, cleanups and tree planting, things like that. We've done volunteering with MN 350, which does work around climate justice. And then, there's kind of a range of organizations over the years.
Well, that's interesting. I've had a couple of guests on the program from Friends of the Mississippi.
Cool.
So we've intersected already, haven't we?
Yeah. And we're a small congregation, so we're not bringing huge numbers of people to these events, but we are trying to partner and uplift, mutual kind of shared priorities.
Yeah. So what are the some of the things that your daughter and your husband reflect on as they experience your role as the leader of the Or Emet Congregation?
That's interesting. I think my daughter, as is like typical of a lot of kids, and this is very sweet, like basically says, like, I want to do what you do when I grow up. And she's like, well, I'm going to be a rabbi and a nurse, and I'll be, so I'm like, okay, is this a new rabbinic dynasty we're starting here? Not so much.
And how old is she?
She's going to be 5 in February.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it's really gratifying to see how excited she is about Jewish culture, celebrating holidays. And then, I think, my husband has always been just really wonderful and supportive of what I do. And he's excited about, I guess, well, just even opportunities I have like this. Like, he's like, you're going to be on TV. And I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Well, it's great that you have family support and appreciation for what it is that you've made a commitment to. Right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So what are some of the aspirations you have that you may work towards or try to evolve towards through your career and your leadership with Or Emet?
I mean, I guess in terms of like personal aspirations, I'm not someone who's seeing this as like, oh, my launching pad to bigger and better things in other places. I mean, I think so long as the congregation wants to have me, like, and we are continuing to work together in ways that feel positive for everybody. Like, I want to be there. Like, I'm very committed to Or Emet and seeing it thrive. I'm, interested in, I mean, this is again, kind of a personal thing, but so like I'm also like a visual artist, and it's something that in recent years I've had less opportunity to be doing that work, but like in sort of past professional life, like I drew like a comic series that was featured on like MN Artists, other kinds of things like that, and I'm interested in finding more ways to integrate that visual arts practice into the work that I'm doing at Or Emet and as rabbi. And then I think also building off the community partnership piece, like I'm interested in finding more ways that I, as a representative of the congregation, can engage in advocacy around issues that align with our values.
Have you seen among young people in the congregation there that maybe you are an inspiration, a motivation, a model for them to want to pursue the kind of career that you have?
I don't know. I mean, I think one thing that I will say that has been really exciting and affirming for me is to see how many youth I've worked with over the years in our Jewish Cultural School, our Jewish Cultural Sunday School, both as their teacher and then for a period of time as the school director, how many of them as young adults and now as adults have stayed involved with the congregation, some of them coming back as teachers, emerging in leadership roles, and then also doing really wonderful things in other aspects of their lives, making real contributions. And I think that, to me, says that we're doing something right. If young people want to come back to that context and, continue to develop it and keep it relevant versus saying like, oh, I want to get as far away from that as I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thinking about the opportunities that you have in this position that you have, what do you expect to happen over the next couple of years that might be impactful for maybe you personally and maybe for the congregation?
That's a big one.
That's a hard question, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, let's see. I'm thinking about there's a political scientist who's spoken at Or Emet in recent months who has made some jokes about the unknown unknowns, quoting old Donald Rumsfeld there. I mean, I think, so many things, well, I guess, COVID being an example, that was like a real, like a surprise, a curveball. And then I think one positive thing that came out of that is we pivoted to even with the return to in-person, offering pretty much all of our programming and services in hybrid format, making things much more accessible, for folks with disabilities, people who may not be able to drive at night, other kinds of things like that, with transit issues. I'm somebody who I am a bus rider. I understand it can be hard to get places. So anyways, I think that is something that is really a wonderful and a positive thing in terms of access. And, I hope that we can continue to develop and enhance our ability to do hybrid in ways that are effective. And then, I guess whatever, curveballs life has in store for all of us, I hope that we're able to continue to meet the moment and, hopefully generate some powerful and effective pivots that may, grow into cool things.
Well, then here's a perfect follow-up question to that, I think, Rabbi Eva. Does the Humanistic Judaism have a world vision or world mission?
I think the working for a world in which the value and the dignity of every person is defended and celebrated, working for a world that is safe and clean and healthy for all living things, working for a world in which Jewish culture and tradition continues to be a vibrant source of positive meaning for us and for all who identify with the Jewish history and culture and future.
Do you have a perspective about why humankind in general doesn't have the same views and values about human life and respect for human dignity? As we look around us, we see that isn't apparently a universal concept that people embrace, but do you have a perspective about why that might be?
It's an interesting question, and there's a thesis that people often assert is that it's necessary to be religious, to be ethical, or to be to be charitable, or to be caring. And then when we look at the actual data, it seems like there is a lot of social science research that affirms that being religious may promote some of those tendencies, but really only in regard to those delineated as part of your in-group. And so I think, the more universalistic orientation is, less common.
Well, we have a minute or so left in the program today, Rabbi Eva. Any thoughts that you would like to leave with our viewers?
Well, I guess, maybe some quotes or ideas that have meaning for me. I guess if you were to sum up my ethos, Humanistic Judaism's ethos, you could say we're working for a Shena and a Bessere Welt, a better and a more beautiful and a better world, is a Yiddish expression. And then thinking about a couple of quotations. These are things that come from Jewish tradition, from the Mishnah, but are, I think, resonant, whether you're religious, you're secular. This idea that, and this is attributed to Rabbi Hillel, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am not for others, what am I? If not now, when? And then Rabbi Tarfon, another quotation, from this same part of the Mishnah, the idea, it is not incumbent on me to complete the work, but neither am I permitted to desist from it. So I think both of those hopeful and realistic.
Those are very appropriate comments to wind up our program. Our guest today has been Rabbi Eva Cohen, who's the leader of the Or Emet Minnesota Congregation for Humanistic Judaism. Thank you, Rabbi Cohen. Congratulations, and we wish you ever success.
Thank you, Bill.
And thank you for watching Access to Democracy.